Nebbiolo. Out of all the red wines we are learning about in this level, the one that's planted least must be Nebbiolo. Its home is in the hilly region of Piedmont, in northwest Italy, and nowhere else in the world does it make such tannic, long-lived and fascinating wines. You might be wondering why we are covering this variety if so little of it is grown. It's because this is a classic variety. A variety capable of making some of the most interesting, long-lived and complex wines in the world. Think of Nebbiolo as the Pinot Noir of Italy. Difficult to make away from its home, and when made right becomes one of the world's greatest wines. First, let's get the pronunciation right. Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo. You try. Nebbiolo means the foggy one in Italian. Piedmont in the north of Italy has had Nebbiolo growing there for a very long time. The main Italian wines that use 100% Nebbiolo are the wines from Barolo and Barbaresco. These are two areas in Piedmont that have the best conditions for growing this tricky grape. If you hear anyone talking about a delicious Barbaresco or a tannic Barolo, you now know they are talking about wines made from the Nebbiolo grape. There is not much Nebbiolo grown in the New World, as the grape has proved very difficult to grow well outside its traditional home. But the great Italian wines of Barolo and Barbaresco are so unique, so complex and interesting, that winemakers around the world are trying to make something just as good, but are having a very tough time so far. The reason there is so little Nebbiolo grown outside of Italy is because the grape is so incredibly fussy about where it likes to grow. Nebbiolo buds early and ripens late. This poses a big problem during flowering, as cold, wet weather at this stage of the vine cycle can destroy a large portion of the crop. After veraison, the time when the grapes start to change from green to purple, Nebbiolo needs dry and warm conditions to ripen properly, so that the fruit flavors can develop to balance the grape's naturally high levels of tannin and acidity. One of the most interesting things about Nebbiolo is that despite its rather thin skins and lack of color in the final wines, the grapes have huge amounts of tannins and acidity. In the cellar, there are two main approaches to making Nebbiolo. The one is traditional and the other is modern. Here we are talking mainly about how the grape is made in Barolo and Barbaresco. Traditional techniques are based on letting Nebbiolo ferment at quite hot temperatures, between 30 to 38 degrees Celsius, in large old oak casks. The traditional macerations are also quite long, up to 30 days. This extracts huge amounts of tannins and creates wines that do not have a huge amount of primary fruit flavors. The modern style focuses on shorter fermentation and maceration times at lower temperatures, between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius. This allows for more fruit aromas to be preserved. Malolactic fermentation is encouraged in the modern style to help soften the wines and make them more approachable at a younger age. This modern style also sees winemakers using more small oak barrels to ferment and age the wine in. These small barrels help soften the wine, but can sometimes add too much vanilla aroma that can mask the rose scents Nebbiolo is known for. The wines will also go through significant aging in barrels, big or small, depending on whether the producer is modern or traditional. Depending on the style of wine, they can be aged between 2 and 4 years in barrels before they are bottled. Let's understand more about the flavors of Nebbiolo and how it develops over time. The classic description of Nebbiolo is that it has the aroma of tar and roses. Alongside this, you'll find cherries and herbs. The wines are lightly colored, and because of the huge amounts of natural tannins and acidity, they need time to soften and develop. Traditional Italian Nebbiolo from Barolo and Barbaresco need between 8 and 12 years to soften and gain complexity, and can go on aging for up to 30 years. As the wines age, they take on a slightly orange color. Lighter styles of Nebbiolo from Italy and the New World can be drunk earlier, with the wines showing best at around 5 years of age. One of the most important aspects of understanding this tricky and difficult grape is what food to eat with it. The big tannic wines of Barolo and Barbaresco have been enjoyed for hundreds of years in this part of Italy with the local foods. When in doubt about what food pairs with a wine, always look to the place where it historically comes from and what the locals are eating there. In Piedmont, you find butter-laden dishes, rich truffles, game and wild meats packed with flavor. These big hearty meals need the tannins and acidity the Nebbiolo grape provides to balance out their richness. If your guests are looking for Nebbiolo, be sure to recommend the heartiest, richest food on your menu, especially if the Nebbiolo they are drinking is quite young. While you might not see a lot of Nebbiolo around, it is one of the great wines of the world. Look out for Barolo and Barbaresco on the label and recommend it to your guests who are looking for a big, serious wine to enjoy with their meal.